You may remember that at the very start of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Chernobyl was one of the very first places that Putin sent in Russian soldiers to occupy. Now, why Putin sent Russian soldiers to occupy Chernobyl, we still don't really understand. But we're finally now starting to get a better idea of what the Russians did while they were at that site. This is from the Associated Press today. Dateline Chernobyl, Ukraine. Quote, in the earliest hours of Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February, thousands of tanks and troops rumbled into the forested Chernobyl exclusion zone, churning up highly contaminated soil from the site of the 1986 accident that was the world's worst nuclear disaster. In the dirt of one of the world's most radioactive places, Russian soldiers dug trenches. Ukrainian officials worry they may have been digging their own graves. For more than a month, some Russian soldiers bunked in the earth within sight of the massive structure built to contain radiation from the damaged Chernobyl nuclear reactor. A close inspection of the trenches they dug and that they lived in was impossible today because even walking on that dirt is discouraged because of radioactivity. The deputy head of the state agency that manages the Chernobyl exclusion zone told the AP today that he believes hundreds or thousands of soldiers damaged their health, likely with little idea of the consequences, despite plant workers' warnings to their commanders. He told the AP today, quote, most of the soldiers were around 20 years old. The full extent of Russia's activities in the Chernobyl exclusion zone is still unknown, says the AP today, especially because the troops scattered mines that the Ukrainian military is still searching for. Some of those mines have detonated, further disturbing the radioactive ground at the site. The Russians also set several forest fires at the Chernobyl exclusion zone. Ukrainian authorities cannot monitor radiation levels across the Chernobyl exclusion zone today because Russian soldiers stole the main server for the system, severing the connection on March 2nd, just days after they occupied the site. The Russians even took Chernobyl staffers' personal radiation monitors. So they're operating without those now, too. Why did they do that? And did they have any idea what they were doing? I mean, these Russian soldiers blundered into Chernobyl right at the start of the war. They stayed for 5 weeks, apparently with no idea what they were getting into. Only now are we starting to learn how fantastically reckless and presumably ignorant they were about one of the most radioactive places on Earth. The International Atomic Energy Agency said today that the head of the IAEA is going to lead a mission of nuclear experts to Chernobyl sometime in the next 2 weeks to try to assess how much damage was done by the Russian occupation there. They say they're going to do, quote, nuclear safety, security, and radiological assessments of the site. And they're also going to try to set up new monitoring systems to replace the ones the Russians all looted and stole, presumably without even knowing what they were for. But all this is happening, of course, while the war is still underway in Ukraine. While Russia appears hell-bent on taking over, all of Ukraine, or at least all of it they can destroy enough to seize. And while the Russian soldiers that occupied the Chernobyl exclusion zone are out of there now, that's why the AP was able to get in there today. Russian soldiers, as of right now, as of tonight, they're still at a nuclear power plant that isn't mothballed and stuck under a dome like Chernobyl. They're still at a nuclear power plant in Ukraine that is currently operating. Russian soldiers right now are still occupying the largest currently operating nuclear power plant in Ukraine, which is also the largest nuclear power plant in all of Europe. Russian soldiers are there now. We know what they did while they were in Chernobyl. How are they doing with the one that's currently operating right now, right? Just as we're learning the extent to which these guys respect and understand and can be trusted with all things nuclear, there's all this attention as to whether or not Putin wants to use nuclear weapons in the fight in Ukraine. What about the nuclear damage his troops are doing on the ground at nuclear power sites?